The video game industry has witnessed a remarkable transformation over the past few decades. Once dominated by large studios and major publishers, the industry has gradually opened its doors to smaller independent developers. This shift has given a rise to what we call indie games, which have developed into a powerful subsect of the gaming world, redefining player experiences and challenging traditional conventions. Indie games differ significantly from AAA titles, which are large budget productions from well-established developers. Understanding this rise and the differences between indie and AAA games helps to appreciate how diverse and innovative the gaming landscape has become. Indie games, or games developed by independent creators without the backing of major publishers, have existed since the early days of video games. However, it wasn't until the early 2000s, mid-2000s, that they began to gain significant attention with the advent of digital distribution platforms such as Steam, the PlayStation Network, and Xbox Live. Indie developers found a new way to distribute their games to a global audience without needing a traditional publisher. This shift in distribution changed the game, quite literally, for independent developers. Some pioneer titles are credited with the propelling of the indie game scene into the mainstream. Games like Braid or Super Meat Boy brought attention to the creativity and unique design philosophies that the indie games could offer. And these titles were followed by Minecraft, which, despite being an indie game, grew into a worldwide phenomenon and the biggest game in the world. The success of these games demonstrated that small teams could produce compelling, innovative, and financially successful games without needing the vast resources of AAA studios. Technological advances also played a crucial role in the rise of indie games. Affordable game development engines like Unity, Unreal Engine, and Game Maker Studio allowed developers to create high-quality games without needing to build their own engines from scratch. These tools democratized game development and enabled passionate individuals to turn their ideas into reality without the massive overhead that are traditionally associated with video game creation. Indie games are defined not just by their independent development, but also by their own specific characteristics. Often, indie games are recognized for their own artistic innovation, unconventional game mechanics, and willingness to take creative risks. Since indie developers are not beholden to shareholders or massive production budgets, they're free to play with and explore niche markets, experimental gameplay, and stories that AAA games might avoid for fear of alienating a bigger part of their audience. One big selling point of indie games is their emphasis on originality. While AAA games may refine and iterate upon established formulas, indies often focus on unique ideas that challenge the norms of game design. For example, Undertale subverted traditional RPG tropes by allowing players to complete the game without ever even defeating an enemy. This unconventional approach endeared the game to millions of players and demonstrated how indie games could push boundaries in ways that AAA games barely attempt, if ever. Another defining feature of indie games is their smaller scale. Since indie developers often work with limited sources, they tend to focus on shorter, more concise experiences rather than the sprawling open-world epics that are common among AAA titles. These smaller games, however, often pack a more concentrated emotional or intellectual punch. Games like Celeste, Hollow Knight, and Stardew Valley showcase the incredible depth, craftsmanship, and emotional resonance that indie games can offer in a relatively contained package. And these three games are part of this Mount Rushmore of indies that I consider to be what propelled indies in the last 10 years. Additionally, indie games tend to foster a close relationship with their audience. Many indie developers rely on crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter or early access models to finance their projects. This creates a collaborative relationship between developers and players. This close-knit dynamic fosters a sense of community that allows developers to receive real-time feedback during the development process, something that is often missing in the top-down production approach of AAA games. So in contrast, AAA games are big-budget productions from major studios with vast marketing campaigns, high production values, and expectations of significant financial returns. AAA games tend to prioritize polished, cutting-edge graphics, large open worlds, a lot of cinematic storytelling, and sometimes extensive multiplayer features. There's games like The Witcher 3, Grand Theft Auto 5, and The Last of Us that are designed to appeal to the broadest possible audience and are often developed by teams numbering in the hundreds, if not thousands of people. One of the key characteristics of AAA games is their reliance on established franchises and proven formulas. Huge publishers like EA, Ubisoft, and Activision often choose to invest in sequels, reboots, and spin-offs because these projects come with a built-in fanbase with a higher chance of financial success. This approach is rooted in risk mitigation, with the development cost often exceeding hundreds of millions of dollars. AAA publishers can't afford to take too many creative risks. But as a result, the gameplay and the narrative structures of AAA games often follow established patterns to ensure commercial success, which can get pretty boring. Another defining feature of AAA games is their marketing machine. Unlike indie games, AAA titles are backed by massive marketing campaigns, often costing millions of dollars. These games are featured in very high-profile events, usually led by Jeff Keighley. They have extensive advertising budgets, and they secure prime placement in digital storefronts. The sheer visibility of AAA games allows them to dominate the conversation in the gaming community, which can sometimes overshadow indie releases. Indie games are often passion projects where developers can freely experiment with gameplay mechanics, storytelling, and artistic expression without the need to conform to the market trends. This creative freedom allows indie games to explore niche genres and introduce bold new ideas that AAA games might avoid in fear of losing money. On the other hand, AAA games, due to their high stakes, often focus on refinement rather than experimentation. They rely on well-established game design principles, creating polished, broad appeal experiences that are designed to sell millions of copies worldwide. The financial model differs between indie and AAA games. Many indie games adopt flexible pricing models, including early access, and usually ranging between $5 to $40, but averaging about $20 at release. This model reflects their lower development cost and greater willingness to experiment with unconventional business strategies. On the other hand, AAA games usually come with a fixed premium price point of often around $60 to $70, and on top of that, they may also include additional monetization strategies such as season passes, DLC, and microtransactions to further recoup their massive development and marketing cost. So what is in store for the future of indie games and AAA games? Both indie and AAA titles will continue to coexist and shape the future of the gaming industry in their own unique ways and lanes. While AAA games will likely remain dominant in terms of mainstream visibility and sales, indie games have carved out a huge significant niche in the market, offering a diverse range of experiences that challenge and enrich the medium. Looking ahead, indie games are poised to continue benefiting from the digital distribution that we're heading towards in the industry and the advancements in game development tools. This will ensure that new voices and creative visions continue to thrive. AAA games will likely continue to push the envelope in terms of technical achievements, offering expansive open-world experiences, hyper-realistic graphics, and massive multiplayer environments. However, they may need to become more agile in responding to player feedback and demands for new creative content if they wish to avoid growing stagnant. Recently, we've seen the downfall of the AAA industry take place before our very own eyes in the last few years, with massive layoffs, specifically from Microsoft, but also mistreatment to their employees and overlooking the quality of their work environment. Furthermore, the money that is being lost with huge projects that people are not interested in. More recently, the gigantic loss from Sony with the release of Concord, selling only about an estimated amount of 25,000 units, losing Sony hundreds of millions of dollars. But why did this occur? It's because corporations need to ensure investors feel comfortable with the product, and this was a matter of playing it safe with a formula that worked in the past with Overwatch. However, it also shows how out of touch these corporations and investors can be, pushing a game and concept that has not only been repeated multiple times, but has been done better by others, many with a free-to-play model. While big investors and backers are what has allowed the AAA titles and industry to soar and bleed into the mainstream and make gaming a socially acceptable hobby and career, it's these same corporations that are destroying the very own industry with the greed and profit vision that they're unable to live up to. Ultimately, it's your own preference that matters. AAA titles are successful for a reason. Sometimes you don't need a deep narrative or wacky game mechanic. Sometimes you just want to hop on Call of Duty and blow up and shoot things or massacre hordes of zombies. Or for sport fanatics, getting to live out fantasy scenarios with your favorite players and teams is a good way to connect to the hobby you love. The rise of indie games has added a rich layer of diversity to the gaming industry, allowing for a wide range of creative expressions, unique gameplay mechanics, and narrative innovations that AAA games often cannot afford to explore. While AAA games offer unparalleled production values and broad appeal, indie games bring passion, experimentation, and artistic freedom to the table. Together, these two branches of the gaming world do complement each other, enriching the industry and ensuring that players have a wealth of experiences to choose from. Whether players seek the polished spectacle of a blockbuster AAA title or the intimate, thought-provoking journey of an indie game, now more than ever, players have the option to play anything they want. And that was always the vision and the dream of young gamers.